This video was brought to you by Squarespace. So Nintendo had a pretty eventful year, I would say. Switch 2 generation off to an interesting start. We spent so long speculating, so long sifting through rumor after rumor after rumor the first few months of the year. It all reached this crazy boiling point. So it was surreal when Nintendo finally just did it. They revealed the Switch 2, and there it was. And it was all smooth sailing. We were finally getting our new Nintendo console. Everything was good. Until that April Nintendo Direct. The presentation itself was great. The system looked good, the games looked good, but then there was everything else that came after. Since then, the entire vibe surrounding Nintendo has changed. The whole discussion. If you're on the internet at least, it's basically impossible to just enjoy your new system and talk about the games without things devolving into a big Nintendo shaming contest. I'm not here to argue any one position, how much of this is totally justified, how much of it might be slightly overblown. That's not the point. Because wherever you land on the spectrum, there is no denying that right now, Nintendo has a big PR problem. In the eyes of many, they have become the bad guys. And I do think that at least to a point, this internet discourse tends to stay on the internet. It's easy to look at what people are saying online and think that it represents the thoughts and feelings of the masses. But for the most part, that doesn't necessarily tend to be true. The visible public opinion does not always impact sales. Your average person who doesn't really engage with this whole terminally online video game discourse thing like we do is the person who contributes the most significant amount of overall sales. For example, despite all of the Nintendo-related discontent surrounding launch, the Switch 2 still managed to have, by most accounts, the single most successful console launch ever. 10 million units in the span of a few months. Clearly, there are indeed still a whole lot of people who wanted or still want a Switch 2. Many millions of them, in fact. However, if things get too nasty, yeah, that can potentially have an impact on things. And it must be noted, right now, it seems like Nintendo is having a much, much weaker holiday than many of us expected. Over Black Friday week, the Switch 2 was cleanly defeated by the 5-year-old PS5. And it didn't come in that far ahead of the Next Playground, a system that up until a couple weeks ago, practically none of us even knew existed. There are a lot of factors to consider here. Sony offered some pretty steep discounts on the digital model PS5, whereas Nintendo's brand new console wasn't discounted nearly as much. Some of the better discounts were only available on Cyber Monday, which landed in December, so we don't really have the data yet. And biggest of all, the game industry as a whole has been struggling to sell hardware this year. The economy is in the trash, prices are going up across the board in all industries for a number of different reasons, so fewer and fewer people are buying these increasingly expensive game systems. I think there's a fine chance that the Switch 2 underperforming is largely thanks to much bigger issues than people are mad at Nintendo. However, I'm preparing for the possibility that we will look back and see that this generation's sales were kind of front-loaded. It's possible that the success of the original Switch primed Switch 2 for a great launch. You had all these enthusiasts who were gonna get the thing no matter what, but then beyond that, other people might take a lot more convincing. They might want to wait for a better sale or a price drop or just until there are more games to play. And of course, much of this will be thanks to the economic pressure being put on everybody right now. But I also cannot deny that people being mad at Nintendo could potentially have some impact as well. If the discourse gets too negative, if it escapes the lab, it can kind of sour the experience. The Switch did so well in large part because it became one of those lightning in a bottle cultural events. Hype drives sales. And if there isn't really a whole lot of hype for your product, if even the simple act of talking about it on the internet is a morbid affair, then yeah, that could affect things. Nintendo can't magically end the trade war. They can't stop inflation. They can't bolster the weakening yen. And no, despite what we all want, they probably can't stop being a publicly traded corporation under constant pressure from shareholders to only ever make more and more and more money without ever slipping. Probably not This year, at least. Nintendo is just like one of us, in that the only thing they can really control is their own actions. And if they want to guarantee their system's success, they've got to play their cards right. All things considered, 2025 was something of a rocky year for them. And take it from me, a guy on the internet. If they want 2026 to be better, they've got to make it better. And if you want to talk about how to make 2026 better, there's a real obvious one to start with. No more $80 games, okay? Just don't. I really do believe that this whole thing might not have turned out half as nasty if they hadn't charged $80 for Mario Kart. Like really, we were all happy with Switch 2, but the second we learned about that price, that felt like the precise moment things went south. I get it, the game is gonna sell like crazy for the next 8 years plus. Nintendo wanted to future-proof those sales, but being the first company to charge that much was not the right move. It just wasn't, because now they're the trendsetters. If the rest of the industry starts charging that much, then it'll be entirely Nintendo's fault for getting away with it. So, Nintendo, if you want to undo that damage, or at least start to undo it, keep offering the discounted Mario Kart bundle, and just don't slap that price tag on anything else for the time being. I have no doubt that $80 will become the new norm in the next couple years, considering how things are going economically and all that, but just don't lead the charge. It's not worth it. It's too much of a sticking point. And even if you're smarting from all of those $10s you could have made, you're gonna make it up by selling DLC. Paid DLC is obviously going to be an even bigger part of Nintendo's strategy moving forward. And DLC tends to offer a much bigger return on investment. So just charge the already increased $70 and be happy in the knowledge that plenty of people are gonna shell out 20 or 30 more on top of that. On that note, though, if you're gonna lean this hard into DLC, you gotta be smarter about it. I've got a whole video on this topic if you missed it, but Nintendo was initially very wary of DLC. It took them quite a while to warm up to the idea, and they really wanted to make sure it didn't feel like they were ripping us off or withholding content from their games. They wanted their DLC to offer good value. This generation, the narrative has started to shift, and it's largely thanks to how they are handling their announcements. Announcing DLC soon or even before the launch of a game is not new. However, in the past, these announcements have been made well in advance of the launch of the DLCs themselves. But in the September Direct, they shadow dropped DLC for DK Bonanza, which had launched only a few months prior, and announced DLC for Pokemon Legends ZA, which hadn't even launched at all yet, and the DLC ended up releasing within a few months of launch as well. In Nintendo's slight defense, we have had reports that both games were complete long before their respective launches, maybe as long as a year. If Nintendo spent that year making the DLC for DK Bonanza, then this is not necessarily a case of them withholding content. This would just be like any old DLC. But even if that's true, your average person doesn't know that. All they see is that Nintendo is charging more than ever for their games, and also releasing DLC, which itself is quite expensive, so quickly that it absolutely feels like Nintendo withheld all of this just so they could sell it back to us later. Now, just a couple months after launch, these games cost $90 or $100 if you want all the content. So Nintendo needs to be smarter about how they develop and announce these things. DLC has always been kind of a tricky thing. Is it extra content just in case you want it? Is it a pseudo sequel? Or is it just another way to bleed money from us? And a lot of it comes down to how it is presented, how it is timed. Don't give us any reason to be wary of this extra content. Poor timing can turn a fun new thing into yet another Nintendo bad story. And you know what? They also need to stop cheaping out. Like, if you're gonna remix your game into this, like, kinda new mode, that's cool. I'm into that, but charge accordingly. For these prices, we expect true expansions. For 20 or 30 bucks, you gotta deliver. Before we continue looking to the future, I must remind you that this video was brought to you by Squarespace. What kind of website you need? Something for your business, like a landing page, an information archive, a storefront? For physical goods? Or how about digital goods? How about just a place to host your own digital content? A portfolio? Or even a simple blog? Whatever it is, Squarespace makes it easy. The intuitive builder lets anyone create a website, practically however they want, without any prior knowledge or experience or anything. Not a single line of code to be found anywhere. Thank goodness. Programming languages frighten me. And if you ever need some extra juice, Squarespace offers lots of powerful extensions. My site, Arlo Recommends, is a simple blog. I started with a template, messed around with it a bit, and before long, I had a super slick looking site. And even maintaining it is easy. I draft up a bunch of posts at once, schedule them all to publish, and even push to social media automatically, and boom, my work is done. Now I spend most of my time perusing the built-in analytics. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now for today's recommendation, Eleftherios. This artist does a lot of really lovely, really cozy ambient music, often in collaboration with other artists, and compiles it into these nice long videos. Perfect winter vibes, great stuff. Thanks again to Squarespace. Please enjoy the rest of the video. I would love that. And on the topic of being smarter about how things look to the customer, learn how to pick your battles. Prices are going to continue to go up. The powers that be are doing everything they can to make sure that happens. AI is going to dramatically disrupt the entire tech industry in 2026, and, well, the oligarchy ain't gonna stop oligarching anytime soon. Nintendo raising prices even further is an inevitability. But it can't be too much, and it can't be everything. Again, I get it. Shareholders breathing down your neck. They expect greater, if not equal, returns in 2026, or they're gonna start pulling out. They're gonna be mad. No big company likes the idea of shrinking margins, of their products simply making less than they used to. That's why prices keep going up, as all prices go up. No one wants to make less money. Well, I know Nintendo's stuck playing that stupid game for the most part, but man, find a way to strike a balance. Find areas where maybe you can ease up at least a bit. If you've absolutely got to raise prices in one area, figure out what can maybe stay the same for the time being. If I've got to pay a little bit more for a system that I know I'm gonna be using for years, yeah, I don't like it, but I'll probably do it. $50 for an amiibo though? For a chunk of plastic? No, just no. I don't know what amiibo sales are like right now, but that feels absolutely unsustainable to me, especially if those prices go up even more. The goal is to make people grumble, but buy the thing anyway. If you've pushed a huge percentage of your potential audience to just nope out entirely, you're probably losing more money in the long run. Preventing those margins from shrinking even one iota might not actually be the smartest financial move. But of course, what do I know? I'm no CEO, I'm just a schmuck. Similarly though, we need more bones. And no, I don't mean bones to pick. We got plenty of those. I mean Nintendo needs to throw us as many bones as they reasonably can. If this whole hobby is getting really just exorbitantly expensive, we need to feel like at least some Nintendo products offer a good value. Value for money used to be a lot more important for Nintendo, but the Switch showed them that you can potentially sell everything for a premium, never ease up on anything at all, and still outsell the competition. Well, those days of easy wins might just be over. And if that's true, don't wait for another Wii U or 3DS situation. Just save the trouble, eat the humble pie right now. Give us some good deals, sometimes. They can even be strategic about it. Look for the products with the wide margins in the first place. Accessories that sell really well because they're so useful, even though they're really cheap to manufacture. Games that'll be plenty popular, but were produced with surprisingly small budgets. A good deal can go a long way. A big problem this generation is that people feel like they're being nickeled and dimed at every turn. All these increased prices, all these expensive games and DLCs and even accessories, it's like we're being attacked. That's why charging $10 for Welcome Tour was seen as this, like, unforgivable sin for some people. It's just like, give us a break, Nintendo. I get it, you spent money on the game, you want to make some money on the game, but how many people even bought it? And was that money worth the damage to your reputation? When pricing things, you've got to weigh the earned or lost money against the potential earned or lost goodwill. And you know what? After being burned by all these expensive games and stuff, Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch 2 Edition, being a $5 upgrade, was like a little smudge of cooling salve. Little bones like this, here and there, anything to help suppress this growing feeling that being a Nintendo fan is becoming unsustainable. Sure, Switch 2 may be expensive, but at the very least, you got something semi-affordable to engage with when you get one, right? Like, this is why they need to keep NSO's price down, by the way. Not raising the price in 2026 will essentially be throwing us a bone. Being able to play GameCube games on top of everything else for no extra money beyond what I was already paying? Nice bone. Keep it that way. And you know what, Nintendo? If you need some emergency money or some emergency goodwill, don't be afraid to break the glass. Nintendo's got such a huge catalog of games and series, so many potential fans to cater to. So when times get tough, dig to the bottom of the chest. Compared to developing new games, simple remasters may as well cost pennies. And reviving a beloved classic is always an easy win. Now, of course, this process can be tarnished by high prices. Beautiful remasters of Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 should have been reason to celebrate. But look at that, they're too expensive, and now that's all anyone can talk about. Take my advice from earlier. Look for opportunities to ease up on that hyper-aggressive pricing while still making boatloads of money. A nice remaster sold at a good price. Mwah! Easy win. And easy wins is what you're looking for in 2026. Pure goodwill, pure gravy. You know what? Ramp up how many games you port to NSO. Give us more GameCube games. Inundate us with awesome classics. It can only help. You really want to talk about breaking the glass, though? Nintendo has been hiding a heck of a nest egg under the bed for the last 8 years. Like we were just talking about, they've kept the prices of their games consistently high ever since the Switch generation began because they have simply seen no reason to discount any of them. I think there's a good chance they have been saving these discounts for a rainy day. They know that if things start to go south, bringing back Nintendo Selects or something like it could offer a big influx of cash. And from our perspective, goodwill, even if they don't tend to consider that aspect for some reason. Well, now might be the time. People feeling nickeled and dimed? You're developing a reputation for being super greedy and overcharging for everything? Dig out those easy wins. There are so many Switch games that have essentially sold all they're gonna sell. There are a lot more people who want these games, but not at that price. I am certainly one of them. This is especially true for smaller games, or ones that sold okay, but basically stopped selling after launch, like they just didn't have legs. The biggest games are getting Switch 2 editions, and clearly Nintendo's hope is that they'll just keep selling for the foreseeable future. I get that. But a lot of this other stuff, it's basically dead in the water. You're leaving money on the table, not discounting it. Introduce a new line of Nintendo Selects, make them $30, maybe 40, maybe it depends on the game, but 30 is gonna be a real good bargain. And suddenly, these games grow their legs back, they're selling again, even the lesser performing ones are racking up way more sales, you're making a whole bunch of extra money, and best of all, you accrue some semblance of something like goodwill. You heal that reputation a smidge. You bring actual value back into the equation. Switch 2 may be expensive, but at least you can pick up all these cheap games, right? And they even run better on Switch 2 thanks to these performance patches? Well, look at that. That's a pretty darn good value proposition right there. At the very least, though, just give us better discounts. Even if it's just for holidays or whatever, even if it's just older games, Give us some deals, man. Give us a chance to pick up a game for like 50% off every once in a while. Throw us a bone. Easy win. Goodwill. You get what I'm saying? All right, I got some quick ones here. Speaking of game prices, yeah, we're gonna need those 16 and 32 gigabyte cartridges. The whole game keycard thing has certainly not helped Nintendo's reputation. And if it's true that literally the only option for publishers has been the expensive 64 gigabyte card, then I have no doubt that that has pushed many of them to opt for these game keycard releases instead of just eating a ton of profit. It's all but confirmed that smaller cards are on the way in 2026, which is great, but I figured it was still worth mentioning here. Please, Nintendo, do everything you can to keep those silly little proprietary cartridges from thinning those margins and encouraging publishers to ditch them entirely. Also, to quote John Green's brother, "Don't follow your dreams, follow your tools." The Switch 2 has a lot of strengths. Lean into them. So far, my online experiences with my Switch 2 have been leagues above anything on Switch. Keep delivering solid online, improve the online you already have, keep marketing the idea that Switch 2 is a perfect social system and not just because of game chat, and keep updating Mario Kart, which should have been your great big online game from day one, but that goes without saying, doesn't it? And the Switch 2 really is a highly capable system. Keep them performance patches coming, please. Because think about it, having backwards compatibility with a massive library is a selling point the original Switch did not have. This obviously goes hand in hand with the Nintendo Selects idea, because selling a bunch of really terrific games for cheap, and they all run better on Switch 2, that really is such a massive selling point. You want to give people every reason to either upgrade or jump in for the first time. Then, obviously, this isn't the sort of thing that can be implemented within 1 year, but I still must mention that in order for Nintendo to have a good 2026, they gotta bring the games. On paper, the Switch 2's library for its first half year on the market is crazy. Mario Kart is the biggest system seller Nintendo could ever hope for, and it was there on day one. But it launched in kind of a bare-bones state, and there's all this controversy surrounding it, which has kind of spoiled the experience for some people. Kirby Air Riders is awesome, but not exactly a big system seller. Age of Imprisonment is kind of cool, but has a very, very limited audience. Pokemon tends to sell systems, but this one is also very controversial, and it's a cross-gen title, so you can just get it on Switch and even save $10. Metroid Prime 4, reviews very mixed, and also available on Switch for cheaper. Kinda seems like the only solid win here is DK, though even that kinda does come with a caveat of its own. The entire game hinges on the idea of breaking stuff. And if that does not appeal to you, you are not going to like the game. But even if you ignore that and consider DK a perfect piece of Switch 2 software, it's just one game. And with the world the way it is right now, people are more careful with their spending than ever. It's probably gonna take more than one game. The 2026 lineup so far is looking fine, but pretty sparse. I have no doubt that Nintendo will reveal plenty of stuff in the first half of the year, but man, it's gotta be good. They need some really heavy hitters right now. Hold the caveats, please. They can't magically materialize a new Smash out of thin air if it's not already practically done, but let's hope that it's already practically done. And my final piece of advice for Nintendo goes along with a lot of what I've already been saying. This is a hard one for them. Nintendo, they're absolute geniuses, but they are the stupidest geniuses you've ever seen in your life. At times, they seem entirely oblivious to public opinion, entirely unable to anticipate how their customers may react to anything. I mean, this is kind of a problem with any big company. The people calling the shots way up at the top of the buildings, they're just so far removed from the end users buying their products, so they genuinely don't know what's going on in this world of normies that we live in. But Nintendo seems particularly bad about this sometimes. And I don't know how or why this would improve now, but if they want 2026 to go better, they need to figure out how to avoid at least the most obvious pitfalls. The 100% avoidable blunders. As I keep saying, so often it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it, how you present all of this to the customer. You got to take at least tiny steps around these highly visible landmines you keep stepping on. I mean, they're sticking right out of the ground. Like, do you need better glasses or what? Like the Metroid amiibo thing. Forgive the rant, but this was probably the most stupidly predictable and avoidable thing all year. So, the desert in Metroid Prime 4 features ambient music. But one of the amiibo unlocks the ability to play any music track you want while riding the bike. I've heard that you can unlock this in-game, but I genuinely can't find a straight answer online, so whatever. From Nintendo's perspective, I kinda get it. Hey, these amiibo are supposed to do something, right? Like that was the whole point originally, to unlock little in-game bonuses. So, I don't know, let's give them this fun little option. I'm not saying it was a good idea, it was a very bad idea, but I am a firm believer in Hanlon's razor. Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. This was clearly just a casual little decision, not some convoluted swindle. They probably didn't even give it much thought. That's why they didn't realize that, hey, this boring desert, it's kind of a sore spot for players, and you are kind of charging extra for the ability to make it a little less boring. So, naturally, how does the internet react to this? Nintendo locked the soundtrack behind a $30 paywall! They purposefully made the desert have boring music so they could sell the music back to us. Like, it just blows up into this big, huge thing. Yet another example of how Nintendo is so disgustingly greedy. I'm sorry, but I think making a massive stink out of it and Nintendo doing it in the first place are equally silly. The entire thing is absolutely asinine. I don't know if you need to like actually start sitting down and polling real fans or what, but there's got to be a way to gain some small level of cognizance here, some awareness of how these decisions are going to be interpreted and reacted to. I know I said I wasn't going to pick sides here, but in Nintendo's slight defense, maybe the intensity and suddenness of this new hyper-reactionary rage bait culture took everyone by surprise. The Switch generation spawned a whole industry of Nintendotubers, and the Switch 2 generation has spawned an industry of Nintendo hate-tubers. That's basically a career now. But again, wherever you stand, it is what it is. It's all a great big minefield now, and you gotta learn how to spot the mines if you don't want 2026 to be another endless parade of controversies and news stories about the controversies and YouTube videos about the controversies. That's the way I see it, at least. That's what I think Nintendo should do if they want to have a better 2026. Which is a lot easier to say than to have a better second half of Switch 2's first year plus first half of Switch 2's second year. Why did they release this thing in June? If you've got any ideas, please let us know down in the comments. And, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I hope you had a good holiday season. I hope a lot of good things happen to you this year. I hope this is a great year. Thanks for watching. Really, really, really. Thank you for watching. You're awesome. Happy New Year, you wonderful people. I love you so much. Ah!